I know, is it Allison reached out to me through LinkedIn, and I was very sus when I saw the reach out. I was like, whatever, they're not adding what kind of credentialing? It's probably some, made up crap that, everybody's doing. Oh yes, I have credentials and blah blah blah, right? So I did respond and stuff, and I was really amazed and really pleased to hear that no, this is actual for our field credentialing that matters, that is evidence-based information and training and learning theory. And I've started the program, so I have one more section left to go before I do the final. But before we get entirely into that, I just want to get everybody to get to know you guys as individuals. Kate, let's start with you. How did you, I know you're a vet tech, right? So how did you like, oh, I want to be a vet tech and dog training and all that stuff?
I wish it had been that easy.
I know, right? It's usually not.
Not how it played out. I actually started years ago working with horses and went into large animal medicine, and then ended up working with the local shelter where I was living at the time. And that was how I kind of went down the small animal medicine route. Along the way, got my veterinary technician license. Was working with a veterinarian there with small animals, and I had a knack for working with the more challenging patients we saw. And that is kind of how I went into dog training. Eventually going to the Karen Pryor Academy and have run my own business for a couple of years with training while continuing to work for vets. I retired from the veterinary community a while back now. I'm not going to give a lot of dates here.
I'm not asking for dates. We don't need to know that.
And at the time, while running my own business, ended up exploring Good Pup, which was at the very beginning stage of a virtual dog training platform, and ended up working for them full time, becoming their trainer, the person who trains their trainers. And then over the years, as that grew, it was eventually purchased by Rover. And that was how I came to be at Rover.
Nice. That's an awesome journey. It really is. That's great.
Journey is a good way to put it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's a journey for everybody, I think, with that, like, because we're talking about positive reinforcement training, which is a huge buzzword, which can be a trap for some pet owners thinking, hey, this is positive reinforcement. And we'll give your cookies until we put the shock collar on them type of training, right? Were you always interested in positive methods and scientific methods? Like, what's your background or history with that?
Well, I think like many of us who started a long time ago, there wasn't at the time a lot of research out there. So we were involved in what we thought was the right way to train. And then I think as we got more research, as someone who had a biology degree and was very interested in science, I started to explore those avenues, which is where my training went. And of course, that's, has changed significantly over the last several decades.
Yeah.
So now that we have more research, things are very different. But I think for many people who've been in the field as long as I have, they've been involved in a variety of avenues of training. Yeah. And I think it really comes down to you as a trainer and educating yourself to see where you're going to go. So 100%. I can't say that's where I struck out, because it kind of ended up an area I fell into.
Yeah.
But certainly as it has evolved, I wanted to evolve with it.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. It is an evolution for sure. I come from the same background as you. just heavy-handed. And I use shock collars. That was not a thing that that was not used a lot. That's the way it is these days. But it was there in the toolkit. But it was all the aversive stuff, the alpha rolls and blah 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 blah. But
Which,
that's all we knew
yeah,
back then.
what everybody knew. Mhm.
Yeah, and that was the norm, and I kind of fell into dog training, quote unquote, by accident, so to speak. So, yeah, so it's like, um and I feel like it gives us, for me anyway, a little bit more of a sensitivity or understanding to be like, "Hey, yeah, I get that. Like, I used to do that. I used to be that trainer. We don't have to do that. Look over here." And somebody I'm so glad and thankful, forever grateful, introduced me to APDT, and the rest is history. But yeah, so it is definitely, it's a journey. It's a journey.
It is a journey, and I think there's
Yeah.
something to be said for those of us who've been around a really long time.
Yeah.
We are able. I think most of us come at things with a certain amount of empathy, right?
Mhm.
And that allows us to approach things in a manner we can get other people more on board for the education.
Yeah,
And that really is what's most important.
for sure. For sure. What about you, Jenny? What's your history? What's your journey been like? Like, how did you get into it? Were you always like, some people are like, "Hey, I always wanted to be, whatever."
Yeah, no, I had a whole past life.
Uh-huh.
I was very involved in the arts growing up. I went to
Mhm.
school, to college and got my Bachelor of Fine Arts. I was a professional dancer for New York City, in New York City for years.
Nice.
But sort of kind of all along the way, I was very involved in rescue, right? So I didn't know you could buy a dog growing up. Like we always got our dogs from shelters. We rescued cats from the neighborhood, all of that. So that was just kind of like the way we did it. And early on, like even when I was dancing and going to school, I would volunteer. Just dog walking, things like that. Um, I through the rescue community, I actually ended up getting involved with a case with the Humane Society of the United States. And this is when I moved back to Florida, kind of after school, stopped dancing, all that stuff. And so they ended up hiring me on as a contractor because this was a population of dogs that was being housed for a long period of time. I ended up working
Mm.
for about 9 months. And it was the first time I just every day sort of went to work, with dogs.
Yeah.
And I worked with a consistent population of dogs in a shelter setting, which is rare.
Yeah.
I got to actually really kind of see how what we did made an impact. It was the first time I was introduced to the ideas of like enrichment and, really trying to help these dogs get some like consistency, enrich their lives while they were living in these really restricted environments. And that just clicked for me, right?
Mhm.
Um, Around about the same time, I adopted a dog. And after I adopted her, I cried every day for about a week
Oh.
because I had absolutely no clue what to do with her, right?
Aw.
And I really, you fall back into like what you know best in your old patterns. And so
Mhm.
it was very much me trying to assert my will and like get her to do the things I wanted her to do, completely ignoring the fact that she had agency and like really had needs that I wasn't fulfilling. So thank you, Bella. That's kind of where I dove in, right? The first big commitment I did was I went up to Pat Miller's farm and spent a week there and was like completely overwhelmed and amazed that this whole world existed. One of
Yes.
the first things she did was say, like, question everything I tell you because we're always learning more about this. And I was like, because I've been told so many times, like, this is the way you train a dog. Like,
Right.
that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I, from there, did KPA as well with Bella, who turned out to be brilliant and just like absorbed so much, and our relationship grew. And I always say, like, force from me was met with like force and resistance from her, and that just, like, I knew there wasn't really a path forward with this particular dog, with kind of the old ways.
The old-fashioned ways.
Yeah. So that was like how I really kind of dove in. And then I went through KPA, got my CPDT. Just that was it. This was like the new kind of trajectory in the new life. I ended up working for about 10 years in different shelters in the Jacksonville area. Moved to Virginia to take a position there, because that's just kind of always where my heart's been, shelter behavior. And then I burned out spectacularly because it's hard.
A lot.
Yeah. After I left the shelter in Virginia, I worked briefly as a service dog trainer, thinking I just get to work with the dogs. I just get to put skills on dogs. Like, that's something you don't really have much of in shelter environment. You're just trying to keep everyone sane and stable. And of course it didn't work out the way I wanted, and I just wasn't really happy there. So I ended up, a friend of mine kind of directed me to Good Pup, and it was a way to really marry both my passions, like training and shelters, because they had a shelter and rescue kind of program where they supported shelters through their virtual training program. That's how I ended up here.
That's amazing. I love it. Yeah. Just so many, especially when a dog comes into our lives, and we can all attest to this, that these dogs teach us so much that we didn't even realize we needed to know or learn, and how that can help transfer over and help our clients too. I
learned more about people, I think, than from Bella, like how to, engage and interact, and like Kate said, like, have empathy and really, be compassionate in my exchanges with people, because there wasn't really another option with it. I feel like so many of us as trainers have like that dog, that really made an impact. She definitely was that for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I have another one of those dogs. Just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I find myself saying it as soon as yesterday, or as late, whatever the saying is, just yesterday.
Right.
I've never had a dog like you, dude, ever. I am learning so much. Thank you very much. Not really. I don't really but I'm like, okay, maybe you can help somebody somewhere down the road who's going to have this particular issue. Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it is. But yeah, when you have that one particular instance, that's great. And just being introduced to just a new way of training for all of us. And it's like, it always kind of blows my mind and makes me kind of think, and maybe it's just this whatever because of how long I've been doing this, but like when somebody comes in and they're like a trainer with all like going straight into Karen Pryor, like, no, like, what do you mean you did blah, blah, blah? Like, this is, so that's also amazing to see the growth in this field. So getting back to the credentials and stuff, and what was it about Good Pup and Rover combining, because I noticed that Good Pup is still within the credentialing piece in the course that I'm taking right now. So what is it that made Rover say, hey, let's do this? Let's credential some dog trainers. You're like, okay, whoever wants to say, or both, whatever, I don't care, go. I
'cause
love how
Jenny,
you
you
both
you
smile.
weren't involved at the very beginning.
I was to a degree, I think. So, I mean, one of the things that Rover did, and we might want to back up further in the process, but just kind of speaking to where I came in and what my experience was, one of the things that we did was we asked a lot of questions, kind of talked to a lot of people. As Rover, we Good Pup had, like I mentioned, the shelter and rescue kind of
Right.
portion of the program. And I sat on a lot of calls with folks involved in animal welfare, in training, in behavior, in sheltering, and said, like, what are you looking for? Like, what would make this work as a program for you, as a platform for you? And so I think that's something that, like, that's just an aspect of it that I really appreciated. They put feelers out, had a lot of conversations, and actually did take feedback, on
Yeah.
What does it look like to be a trainer on the Rover platform.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, Kate, if you want to back up a little bit more, because I know you were involved.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What I meant was, like, from the very
Oh yeah,
get-go idea of this,
yeah,
as far as before you were involved. And so same thing as Jenny said, they really did a good job at asking questions. Initially when it started, and this was kind of my first exposure to the idea of it, they asked about, I was one of the ones that advocated for certifications, credentials.
Right.
And how they got started was we kind of put together the top dog training programs um, across the continental US.
Right.
And then they set up interviews with them to talk to them and ask them about it and see what they thought. And I think that was really even before the shelters, right?
yeah.
What it was. And it was interesting to me because I don't know that was initially the plan. Again, it was something I was advocating for, but as these interviews happened, you started to see that become a bigger part of the plan. And then, as Jenny said, they went even down further out of the news, right, with animal welfare and with shelter organizations. And it was challenging, to say the least, because I think it's also very hard, as you're probably aware too, to get some of these organizations on the phone.
Oh, yes.
To actually have a conversation with them. As much as I would love to say, I think our training community is not always as open as we would all like for it to be. And so that makes it very hard to move forward and to try to do something new
Sure.
that might make things better, right?
Right.
And so there was a lot of knocking on doors to get started
Mhm.
initially. But then, as Jenny said, it kind of moved into that path.
Yeah.
And I think what they discovered from all those interviews and questions is we're going to have to set a standard if we want to be accepted by the community as a whole.
Yeah.